Hi guys, how are you all doing? Welcome to the Emirates, where of course, as you all know, Newcastle have slipped up today in their pursuit of Champions League football next season, and it goes to the last day of the season. Now, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please do now. I'm trying to gain some more subscribers. I really appreciate you guys that have subscribed in the last few weeks, so please do so if you can. Look, I'll keep this pretty brief. I don't think there's any point in going into too much detail about that game, other than Newcastle had their chances in that first half, didn't they? David Raya with 2 double saves early on. Another really good save. The one that sticks out for me was the one from Bruno. Another really good save from Harvey Barnes that was deflected, and he turned around the post. And I just had a feeling at that point that Newcastle really needed to take at least 1 or 2 of those if they were going to take something from the game or get the win that they really needed. And it just left the door open for Arsenal to pounce as they did through Declan Rice, and brilliant strike it was. But I think if you look at the game overall, I mean, Newcastle by far the best team in the first half. They did an XG of 5 times what Arsenal did. I think Arsenal were the better team in the second half, and Newcastle looked a bit disjointed once all the changes were made. Look, changes needed to be made, of course, but when you end a game without Lewis Hall, Sven Botman, Joe Linton, Alexander Isak, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, look, a lot of big name players missing there towards the end, and it kind of showed a little bit. You had players who are coming back from injury, the likes of Willisula, who probably isn't really up to speed yet in terms of the Premier League, and you know, it just felt like a sort of disjointed end to the game. But look, you came here, you lost 1-0, you pushed Arsenal, you had more chances than them, and you're devastated to lose 1-0. Which, you know, in the past probably wouldn't have been seen as that bad a result. So let's not get too down about it. Still, it's in Newcastle's hands. If you beat Everton in that last game of the season, you're in the Champions League next season. I've just spoken to Dan Burn in the mix zone after, and Dan Burn said that, look, we would have snapped your hands off for that before the season started, and you would fancy your chances against Everton. I think the only sort of worrying side of that is Everton seem to be in a good run at the moment. They're playing with a bit of freedom, and they've been in a real upward trajectory under David Moyes. I think you've got to hope that Alexander Isak is available. Now, in the press conference afterwards, Eddie Howe said they don't know if he will be. He's obviously getting a scan on that groin issue. I'm told he did travel here to London, but was unable to take part in the game. So look, a huge blow for Newcastle. When I was reading out the team news before the game, there's some Newcastle fans round about the camera, and when I said Isak wasn't playing, they all cheered at the one time, because they know how important he is to Newcastle and how dangerous he is to their side. So look, it's imperative you try and get him in the team for next week, but at the same time you're not going to risk serious injury. What would I do next week? You know, would I start Callum Wilson? He did struggle today, but look, he's got more minutes under his belt. I think Callum Wilson at home is a different player to Callum Wilson away. I would consider starting him, but I'd also consider starting Gordon through the middle, and play sort of Barnes and Murphy on either side. I just think his pace over the top against his former team Everton, and he'll want to get the better of them, might be the best solution, and then have Callum Wilson for a substitute. But look, let's hope Isak makes it. We won't know until next weekend. Huge pressure on this game, but look, there's huge pressure on Chelsea, there's huge pressure on Nottingham Forest, there's huge pressure on Man City, there's huge pressure on, who else is there? Aston Villa. So look, Newcastle have got a favourable game, it's at home, got a great record recently at home. Everton have got nothing to play for. You've just got to go there and do your thing. And I just sensed from speaking to Dan there at the end, Dan Burn, that there's a real sort of resilience to go and finish the job. Yes, it's not ideal leaving it to the last game, and look, I think if you've been roundly beaten 3 or 4-0 today, sorry, I've just had a certain Luke Edwards walking past trying to put me off. I think he's now walking the other way. I think if you've been beaten 3 or 4 roundly today, you could have been like, right, fine, we're going to the last game. But I think just the reason they'll be kicking themselves is the fact that you played so well in that first half. Should have had been 2 or 3 goals up, and you didn't, and you just allowed Arsenal to get back into it. So look, not too much to say other than poor second half performance. Just gave Arsenal something, you know, a bit of life there for them to get back into the game. But look, it's in Newcastle's hands. You go and win the game, you're in the Champions League next season, and I firmly believe that you'll go and do that. St James's Park will be rocking next weekend. What was it, 4 o'clock kick-off? Should be a cracker. And listen, Newcastle don't do the easy way anyway, do they? Alright guys, that's it from me. As I said, short and sweet. It's getting late here. I've been standing around for ages inside waiting for interviews, so time to head off. Right guys, leave your comments below. I'll speak to you during the week. Cheers.